JWT stands for JSON Web Token, and it's one of those terms you will constantly come across in modern web development. At its core, it's a JSON-based open standard format that allows you to represent specific claims securely between two parties. The exciting part is how widely JWT is used, especially in microservice architecture and modern authentication systems. In this tutorial, we'll break down what JWT really is, explore its structures, and see exactly how it helps secure web applications. This won't just be about theory. By the end, you will actually understand why developers rely on JWT every single day. So, are you excited to take this journey and see how JWT can completely change the way you think about authentication and security? Let's get started. JWT is most commonly used for authentication today, but that wasn't actually its original purpose. It was created to provide a standard way for two parties to securely exchange information. In fact, there's even an industry standard specification, RFC 7519, that lays out exactly how JWTs should be structured and how they're meant to be used for data exchange. Think of it like ECMAScript or ES, which defines the standard for JavaScript. Now, in real-world applications, JWTs are primarily used for authorization, and that's the angle I will focus on in this tutorial. But remember, JWT wasn't designed only for authorization. There are other ways to handle authorization too, and one of the most popular alternatives is session tokens. Whatever authorization strategy we use, whether it's a session token or a JWT token, the underlying reason is the same: the stateless nature of HTTP. HTTP is a stateless protocol. When we exchange requests and responses from a browser to a server or between servers using HTTP, the protocol itself doesn't retain any information. Stateless means that during interaction between the client and the server, HTTP doesn't remember any previous requests or data. In other words, every request must carry all the necessary information separately. HTTP does not store any data on its own. Once it receives information, it forgets it. That's why we say HTTP is stateless. It has no inherent state or persistent information. Think of it this way. When we access a web page from a server, what information do we actually send to the server? If it's a simple static website, we don't need to send much. We just send the URL of the page to the server, and the server responds by delivering the corresponding HTML page. This means the server doesn't need to remember any information or maintain any state, which is exactly how HTTP is designed to work, because HTTP itself is stateless. But if the web application provides different responses for each user, in other words, if the website is dynamic, then sending only the URL is not sufficient. The user must also send their identity along with the URL to the server. For example, if a user wants to access page 1, they must tell the server, "I am user A, please give me page 1. The server will then respond with page 1 accordingly. But next time, if the user requests, "Now give me page 2, what will the server do? Since HTTP is stateless, if the request doesn't include the user's identity, the server won't know which response to provide. This means that with every request, the user must provide their identity. But if we look at the websites around us, do we really have to provide our identity every single time? Do we need to log in every single time? Take Facebook as an example. Once we authenticate and log in, the server shows us the home page when we request it, or our profile page when we request that, without requiring us to authenticate with every single request. So the question is, if HTTP is stateless, how is this possible? How does the web application remember our browsing session? The answer is that web applications can maintain sessions in different ways, and one of the most common methods is by using tokens. There are two popular options for this. One is a session token and the other is a JSON Web Token, or JWT for short. Let's understand both so that it becomes easier what JWT is and why it's used. Imagine a scenario in a company's customer care department. A customer calls in with a complaint. The customer support representative listens to the issue and tries various troubleshooting steps but was unable to resolve the problem. And at this point, they forward the case to their higher management team and create a case file for the customer. This file contains all conversations with the customer and details of the troubleshooting attempts. The customer is then given a case ID or ticket ID so that the next time they call, they don't have to go through the same steps all over again. The next day, when the customer called again, they showed their ticket ID to the customer care representative. The representative searched the system using that ticket ID, retrieved the details, and was able to respond accordingly to the customer. This scenario illustrates how authentication works in web application using a session token. When a user authenticates, the server creates a session and keeps track of it. A session ID is generated for that session and sent back to the user, similar to the support ticket in the earlier example. From then on, whenever the user sends a request to the server, they include this session ID or token. The server looks up the session using that ID and identifies the client. Since the server has to handle multiple clients, this session token method has become an effective and widely used strategy for authentication. And how the client sends the session ID to the server can vary depending on the implementation. The most common method is to store the session ID in the browser's cookie. The advantage of this approach is that whenever the browser sends a request to the same server, it automatically adds the cookie information to the request header. This is a built-in behavior of browsers, so no extra steps are needed. When the user authenticates, the server saves data in the browser's cookie, and from then on, that cookie information is sent automatically with every request, allowing the server to recognize the user. Pretty neat, right? This was a very popular method, although in modern application, it has become a bit outdated. But this mechanism has some issues as well. The biggest problem is that it assumes there is only one single server. In modern web application, there are actually multiple servers. In such cases, a load balancer sits in front and decides which server will handle the user's request. Let's say the session token method is being used. When the user sends the first request, the load balancer forwards it to server 1, and server 1 creates a session ID and sends it back to the client. Later, when the user sends another request, the load balancer routes it to server 2. But server 2 doesn't have that session ID. So how will it know which user the request belongs to? The common solution to this is to store the session ID not on a specific server but in a shared Redis database so that any server can verify the session ID from there. This is what's called a Redis cache. However, in a microservice architecture, this approach has a weakness. If for some reason the Redis cache goes down, the servers may still be running, but the authentication mechanism will fail. This is exactly where JSON Web Tokens come in, offering a slightly different approach. Let's revisit the customer care department example. This time, imagine there's no phone or system. The customer comes directly to the office and meets the support agent in person. Since the agent doesn't have any system this time, they can't store all the information like before. Instead, they write everything down on a piece of paper and tell the customer, next time you come, bring them with you. This means the method is a bit different from the previous concept, right? But there's still a problem: validity. If the customer isn't legitimate and acts maliciously, how can the support representative trust them? The next day, if the customer comes in with the same information written on a blank sheet of paper, how can the agent verify the validity of their identity? In this case, a possible solution for the customer care executive is to sign the paper when giving it to the customer. Then, when the customer brings the paper back, the support representative can verify the signature and confidently provide the service. The concept of JSON Web Token or JWT works in a similar way. Here, when the client authenticates, instead of the server saving all the information, it sends all the user's information as a JSON token along with a signature. Later, with each subsequent request, the client sets the entire token along with the request, which contains information like which user it is, their name, and other necessary details in the case. The server doesn't save anything. All the information stays with the client. Each time the client sends a request with this token, the server can read it, identify which user made the request, and provide the necessary data. This token is not just a simple ID, it's a JSON object containing all the information. And this is what we call a JSON Web Token or JWT. How the client stores this JWT is entirely up to the client. The most common methods are storing it in the browser's cookies or local storage. As I mentioned, the server receives a JSON object, but JWT does not look like a regular JSON. On screen, it may seem a bit unusual. In fact, it's an encoded version of the JSON object, a kind of scrambled or compact representation. If we look closely, we will see that a JWT is divided into three parts, separated by dots. I have highlighted them in different colors. The first part is the header. The second part is the JSON payload, which essentially holds our data. And the third part is the signature, which we mentioned earlier. If we examine each part individually, the header is a separate JSON object, and the payload is also a separate JSON object containing our data. The third part is the signature, just like in our earlier example. It's something we could create by hand on paper. But what does the signature mean here? Simply put, the signature is a hash value. Our data is hashed using a secret key to create the signature. This secret key is kept on the server. So, when this JSON Web Token is sent to the server can use that secret key to verify the signature. This ensures that the token is valid and has not been tampered with. Now, let's look at an example. Seeing an example makes it easier to understand how each part works. The best website for working with JWTs and understanding their signature is jwt.io. If we search JWT on Google, the first result is this website. I will also include the link in the video description. I have pasted the bridge example we saw earlier here. Notice that as soon as you paste it, 3 sections appear on the site: header, payload, and signature. We will come back to the header in a moment. The payload is shown in the decoded payload section, which contains my safe content and data. You will see there's an ID, a JSON object with a name, and an expiration time. Alright, the header is also a completely valid JSON, which specifies an algorithm and shows the type, essentially indicating which algorithm will be used to create or verify this JWT. So the main data is the decoded payload section, and the third part is the signature. Now there's an important point to note. Some of you might wonder, where did this scrambled looking token come from? It's actually very simple. The data in the decoded payload is base64 encoded, and that's what forms the appearance of this scrambled token. Alright, I can demonstrate this verification if I copy this part of the JWT and paste it into any online base64 decoder. You will immediately see the data. What does this mean? It means that if this data is encoded again using base64, the same token will be generated. The header works the same way as well. And the final point, the scrambled or encoded part. Is it done for security? No, it's not for security. It's done purely for convenience. JSON objects can be quite large, and not all programming languages handle them in the same way. In JavaScript, it's easy, but in other language, it can sometimes cause issues. So to make it easier to handle, the data is base64 encoded. This is not for security. Encoding it like this doesn't make the data secure because the information can still be viewed publicly. As you can see, the moment I enter it on this site, my data is immediately visible. This means that no sensitive information should be stored here. Only user identification details like a user ID or other public information. Passwords or any secret keys should never be stored in the token because they can be easily read. Even though it looks scrambled or encoded, it is actually public. Alright, now let's move to the security part, which is ensured by the signature. In our earlier paper example, a person could simply add a signature by hand. But for data, the process of creating a signature is different. For data, the signature is created cryptographically using a secret key. This is the actual signature. The process of creating the signature is as follows. First, the data is base64 encoded, then it is concatenated with the secret key and encoded again in base64. The configuration specifies an algorithm. This algorithm can be changed, but the same algorithm used to create the token must be used to verify. This is where security gets ensured. In other words, the algorithm for generating and verifying the token must always be the same. Finally, the data is hashed using a secret key. This secret key is not available to the public. It is kept only on the server, usually stored securely in a server vault. When the JWT reaches the server uses the secret key to verify whether the token is valid. As shown in the example, if it doesn't match correctly, it will display invalid signature. This ensures that the server can confirm whether the token has been tampered with and that its integrity is intact. So let me show you now. In the earlier example, I used "Love You All" from Logic Based Labs as the signature. If I paste it again, you will see it shows signature verified. This demonstrates that the secret key exists only on the server. This ensures that even though public information is displayed, the token's validity can be confirmed. JSON Web Token is not like password. It primarily serves to identify the user. The server can check the JWT to determine whether it belongs to a valid user. In other words, the JWT represents the user's identity. It's a very important token containing secure content along with the signature. Alright, so I hope all the confusion you had about JWT is now cleared up. We have seen what's inside a JWT token, what should be included, and how it should be used. Now, one important thing to remember. If someone gets hold of your JWT token, meaning they have the exact same token, they can easily log in as that user. They just need to send requests with that token to gain the necessary access. Exactly. You could say it like this. If someone gets hold of your Facebook password, they can log into Facebook. Similarly, if someone obtains your PayPal account PIN, they can easily access your account. In other words, if someone gets hold of your most secure information, there's no way to protect it. The same applies to JWT. Keeping the token safely to the client side is absolutely crucial. In this regard, we are somewhat vulnerable. There is, however, one key difference. In the case of session tokens, if we assume an account has been compromised, the server can invalidate the session. In other words, no one can log in using that session ID anymore. But with a JWT token, the token remains valid until its expiration time. So there's no direct way to invalidate it. Since the token is cryptographically self-contained and signed with the server's secret key, once it's created, it cannot be directly revoked by the server. The only way to handle this is blacklisting the token. In other words, the server maintains a separate database listing all JWT tokens that are blacklisted. Whenever a request comes in, the server first verifies whether the token is valid. Then through middleware, it checks whether the token is in the blacklist or not. Only if it's not on the blacklist, then the user is allowed access. So there are these rules for using JSON Web Tokens. JWTs can be used in any programming language, especially in the context of REST APIs. They are extremely popular and widely used in microservices architecture. How you create a JWT depends on the programming language. For example, in Node.js, there are specialized libraries available, so it's straightforward. Simply in PHP, there are easy-to-use options for creating JWTs as well. So JWT is a universal tool. It's not limited to any specific programming language like JavaScript. Many people think it's only for JavaScript. JWT is not just for authentication purpose. It can be used to represent any kind of identity. For example, if you are going to a concert, access could be granted using a JWT token instead of a regular ticket. When your client uses that JWT token, the gateway or server can read the token, provide access to the information, and verify it using the signature. That concludes today's JWT tutorial. I hope all the confusion you had is now cleared up. The tutorial has already become quite long, so without wasting any more time, we will wrap it up here. Take care everyone, and please don't forget to subscribe.